Okay, I want you guys to use this recording instead of the other one. A lot of you had a hard time figuring out or finding your fiber and your protein using the MyFitnessPal app. So instead, this time I want you to use the Safari. So you're going to go to the bottom, click Safari, and you're going to go to myfitnesspal.com. Now I'm already logged in. It may ask you to log in, but if not, it's going to pull it up, and I want you to click on Food. I'm already on my food screen. So what I want you to do is go back to day 1. So using the arrows, you're going to navigate back to day 1. Okay. Now looking here, you're going to see calories, protein, fiber, sugar, saturated fat, and sodium. Those are all the categories that are on page 2 of your nutrition assessment. Okay, so you're going to look for day 1 and you're going to go just like this. But if you notice that says saturated fat, we're not looking for saturated fat. We're looking for just regular fat. So you're going to go to settings and you're going to change what's viewed. So where it says nutrition track, you may see something completely different, but this is what I want you guys to be viewing. Your protein, your fiber, sugar, saturated fat, and sodium. So click on saturated fat. We want to just change that to fat. Okay, scroll down, hit save change. And it's going to save. Go back to your food. You're going to have to go back to your day that you were looking at. But now if you notice up top, it just says fat and not saturated fat. Okay, so for chart 1 in your packet, you're going to scroll down to the bottom. And here's that exact chart that it is asking you guys for. Your totals, your daily goal, and your remaining. Okay, so you're going to copy that chart. So calories, it told me my total was 1,365. My goal was 1,446. So I have 81 calories remaining at the end of the day. So you're going to continue filling that in for your protein, your fiber, your sugar, your fat, and your sodium. And if you set your settings correct, you should see those all at the bottom right here. Okay, so you're going to do that for all 3 days for chart 1. Now, it's actually easier to go back to MyFitnessPal for chart 2. So you'll go back to MyFitnessPal. It's going to pull up your app. Now remember, your app's a little bit different, but I believe this is still kind of what it looks like. If you go to the day that you've tracked, so let's say yesterday. So it says in the top right corner, 53% of my intake came from carbohydrates, 34 came from my fats, and 13 came from my protein. Okay. Now if you click nutrients, it's going to say total, goal, and left, looking at all those categories. So you should see protein down here. You'll see your carbs. It says 63 total. My goal was 181, so I have 118 carbs left over. Okay, fat as well as up top, and then protein is down below as well. And I don't think this is a day I completely logged. So you would want to go, there we go, here, where they're more exact because I logged more food. So this is what you're going to look at for here. And here's your pie graph. You're going to copy this pie graph right into your day 1, day 2, and day 3. Okay, now where it says what is listed as your goal for carbohydrates, fat, and protein, if I could zoom in, oh, I can't zoom in. So I'm going to click on this pie graph. Down below, it says my goals, my total for carbohydrates, fat, and protein. Okay, so there's where you fill in your goal in the blank lines. Okay, that's chart 2. Flipping over to the next page is your reflection. It wants you to analyze different parts of your diet. Specifically, it wants you to look at saturated fats and sodium, which is question 4 and 5. So for this, I want you to go back to your Safari view. It's a lot easier. And so I'm on day 1 right now, and I could look at my sodium intake. Okay, so my sodium intake was 1,318 milligrams. So that's right here, sodium. We see there. Okay, so now it wants me to figure out what foods did I eat that had sodium in it. Okay, so looking at this, I could individually see all the foods that had sodium. So if we zoom in again. Okay, so my hummus, looking right here, has 200 milligrams of sodium right here. So maybe that food was a little bit high in sodium. That's not too bad though, okay? So you're going to continue looking at the foods that have sodium, and you're going to answer question 5 with that. Now going back to saturated fats, remember we changed this to fat right here the first time. I want you to go back to settings, and you're going to change this back to saturated fat. Now remember, saturated fats are bad fat. It's what comes from our animal products, and this is the fat that can clog our arteries, give us high cholesterol and blood pressure, and lead to heart attack, stroke, and all sorts of heart disease, okay? So this is our bad fats. We don't want too much of this. So you're going to go back here, and now if you notice, it says saturated fat instead. Look for foods that have high saturated fat content. So you're going to look for animal products. So maybe your meats, maybe your dairy. So for me, I'm going back to day 1, just taking a minute. Okay, and I'm going to look for food with saturated fat. Okay, here is down below. Here's some lunch meat, which is going to have some saturated fat because it comes from an animal. 1 gram, which is not too bad. Okay, so you're going to continue doing that till you figure out which foods you're eating has a lot of saturated fat. Now you could look at all your different days. So going back to the arrow and looking at this day for saturated fat and sodium, I want you to look at all 3 days. Okay, flipping over to the sugar lab. So just like we did in our drink sugar lab, now I want you to do the exact same thing with sugar. Okay, so if you look at the chart in the sugar lab for step 5, it wants you to put a star next to all the foods you consume that have natural sugar. Now natural sugars, remember, come from anything fruits, vegetables, and milk. Okay, so if you zoom in here, I had a banana, and if I scroll over, I can see it has 5 grams of sugar right here. Okay, so I'll put 5 grams of sugar and I'll star that because it is a natural sugar. You're going to complete this for day 1. Look through all your foods, see what has sugar, and record it below. And then you're going to go to day 2 and day 3. Now if you have, let's say, Orange Kiss Pop, and the sugar content is 50 grams of sugar, you would not star that because it's not a natural sugar. This sugar is a sugar that's bad for you, and it's actually an empty calorie. Okay, so you would not star that. You're only starring your fruits, your vegetables, and your milk. Okay, natural sugar. So once you're done, you're going to total up all 3 days, and you're going to get a grand total of how many grams you consumed in 3 days. Divide that by 4, just like we did in our sugar lab, and that's going to give you how many teaspoons. Once you figure out how many teaspoons, I want you to shade in the teaspoons in the pictures for number 3. If you want as well at home, if you want to scoop out teaspoons as to how much you consume to get a better visual, you can do that. That might actually be pretty fun. Okay, that completes your sugar lab, so I want you to flip over to the next page. The last page is just a reflection. What areas of your diet are really well? They're under the guidelines and everything looks good. What areas do you need to work on? Is your saturated fat too high? Is your sodium too high? Are you over on your calories, under on your protein? So tell me what you think about your diet and where you need to make some improvements. Then I want you to tell me, how can you make these improvements? What are you going to do to eat better, to give your body better nutrition? How well do you think that you eat? Okay? So you're going to answer those questions using at least 3 complete sentences. Once you're done with this page, you've completed the Finalfitnesspal nutrition assessment. This will be due on Thursday, and remember, you're doing this outside of class. Okay, we're not going to have class time to do this. So if you have any questions you need to ask